Hello and welcome to this very special series. In today's interconnected world, no organization is safe from the risk of what's going on in the world politically, economically, or technologically. The risk and threat landscape is evolving at an accelerated pace, and unique risks and vulnerabilities that were once improbable are now the norm. Organizations across the spectrum need to quickly adapt to support business agility and stay relevant. Strategy has to necessarily be dynamic, taking into account the various risks. So, how do we better prepare for these challenges? To delve deeper into this topic, I am joined by Mr. Vineet Teredesai, CFO LTI Mindtree Limited, and Sivaramakrishnan, partner and leader risk consulting at PwC India. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'll start with you, Shiva. Overall, do you think that the risk landscape has evolved and changed? And do you think that the organizations which you deal with in your day-to-day consulting business have been really outpaced with the scope and scale of the changes which we are witnessing currently on the risk front?
I think the risk landscape certainly completely undergone a change post-pandemic. But a lot of companies have found risk as an opportunity, and we have learned to evolve around to convert the black swan event of pandemic into an opportunity in working in businesses, in transforming businesses like digital, moving into digitization, and so on and so forth. If I want to put it together, there are 5 changes that we see in overall environment of managing risk. One is certainly supply chain and operational risks. I mean, we have seen what happened during pandemic, and with the pandemic, the Suez Canal block and as well as Ukraine war in 3 subsequent events from 2020 onwards. Every company start revisiting their supply chain or operational risks to associate with that. Second is the technology risks, because pre-pandemic, there was a speed at which we digitized or moved businesses into a digital space, and the pace that we've seen post 2020, we've dramatically seen a different thing. And then the third risk that we are seeing is the people, because the executive and the employee preferences have undergone a change. With that, organizational processes and its adoption has to undergo a change. Fourth is geopolitical, because in the past, businesses are left alone from the government or national interest. Today, it's intertwined with the actions and activities that we tries to see. So every business has to take that as part of their strategy or risk management to consideration. So certainly these 4 areas of change that we see, which is dramatically quite high. And we do carry out a CEO survey year after year. Just to give you an idea, the latest survey talks about over 80% of the CEOs believe that technology change is disrupting their ability to manage their businesses. However, only 40% of them believe they are ready with it.
So, Vineet, your company deals with a lot of global clients, and you have, talking of technological disruption, which is now the key disruption and risk for all CEOs. How do you see your clients adapting to this? And do you really think, like he said, that they are sort of, in a sense, not prepared in that to the extent they should be?
No, it's absolutely, I agree with Shiva on this particular point. Post-pandemic, for the first couple of weeks, people didn't know what to do. Everything came to a sort of a grinding halt. But when it looked like it's going to last, everybody started reimagining their business models. And that's where the digitization and the technology played a very, very important role. There were only a couple of airports, large airports, if I want to take a travel as an example, who were thinking of an end-to-end technology in terms of check-in to check-out experience. And what happened as a part of pandemic, even the smallest of the airports started thinking in the same direction. Same is the case with a hotel. Everybody, the mobile keys were in existence, but nobody was using it. And actually, people started leveraging that. Now, as a part of this, what underwent was, people didn't think at that point of time the cost part of it. What people said is, it's no longer in a situation whereby I'm going to expect a customer coming to my store and buying my products and services. I had to use technology to actually take my products and services to provoke him and continuously buy. And that was a massive shift that happened. And at that point of time, nobody thought about costs. As of today also, the cloud has been in existence for the last more than a decade. The economics never were in favor of cloud. I don't think so. They are still in favor of cloud. But what has happened is people have got used to it. Now they are looking at how to get a return on my investment. And the second part, the customers are also now seeing is, hey, now I have leveraged the benefits out of it. How can I actually see more and more operations getting into it? I'm not going to go back to the pre-pandemic days in terms of how I used to manage my business. I'm going to think about, I have made an investment, how can I leverage on it more so that I get return to it? So I think so these are the completely shifts that have happened. I don't think so we'll ever go back to those pandemic eras, and now people will only keep on investing more and leveraging more out of it.
So that's a more positive side of this whole disruption and risk which we are talking about. Shiva, let me come to you again and ask you, when you speak to your clients again, what is the sense you get in terms of the fact that how are they seizing the opportunities which have been presented? And we know what are the opportunities in many of these cases. Digitization has created a huge opportunity. Riding on digital, EdTech, for instance, was a huge opportunity. What are you talking to clients about how they can seize the opportunities which are now, like he said, we can't go back to pre-pandemic days. The whole world has changed forever.
In fact, sir, a very interesting question that you posed. If I really look at it, that's in fact one of the reasons why we thought we will run this program is to make risk as an opportunity than as a threat. There are companies who use this as an opportunity to grow. Those who have used this as an opportunity succeeded and grown, flourished. Some companies are listed, they're making a lot of created a wealth. Some companies may not be listed, but that is known, many of us. So our belief is organizations should look at risk as an opportunity. Those who look at risk as an opportunity to find an alternative means and find a new way of doing businesses, they succeed and survive. So the fundamental requirement is to look at risk as an opportunity. So there is many things that we have seen here. So, but the core element for all of this is three things. How does your organization view as a risk? What kind of a culture that you emanated amongst the employees? Is it a control culture? Is it a culture of looking at it as an opportunity to expansion culture? How do we, use technology? Because technology is indispensable in today's business world. The third or fourth is that how agile, how good you are in communication and taking right set of action.
Yeah. It's good you mentioned all these points, Shiva. Coming to you back again, Vinit, when you deal with your clients, which are the sectors you're witnessing where, because you're like a partner to all your clients, right? You're almost like a consultant and, you offer digital solutions.
They are consultants.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You offer digital solutions, right? So, and consulting. So the point I'm making is when you talk to your clients, how are you witnessing the changes they are able to adapt to? Are they really what, like Shiva says, are they really taking advantage of these risks, or are they, like he said, sort of scared of the risk and in a kind of a sullen situation? How do we do that and going back to the drawing board to find it out, or are they taking it on head on? Some of those things, are you witnessing some of those in your?
Oh yes, absolutely. See, I think so. One of the change that I would say what has happened is earlier CIO was a sort of a special invitee, only to sort of educate in certain circumstances to the board. Today, CIO is an integral part of the board. So I think so that's the one major change. The second thing that's also happened is that no longer the buying decisions are no longer centralized also under a CIO. Today, a CFO is a buyer. Today, a CMO is a buyer. A chief digital officer is a buyer, because everybody is looking at technology at the forefront in terms of doing everything and that runs around the ecosystem of the organization. The second thing is what you called about is the innovative solution. It's not only about moving from on-prem infrastructure to an on-cloud. It's a completely usage of technology for creating and reducing down the cost. I'll take an example of a large consumer packaging client that we work for. We are developing an analytics solution, data analytics solution, which is basically completely automating their supply chain. So, for example, if I was going and buying a tea or a rice from my local store, how that used to work prior to pandemic was somebody will come, deliver it, take the next order, go feed it manually, then it will go to the nearest warehouse. Again, that guy will feed it, and then it will go to the production lines, and from there. That entire process is now getting automated in such a fashion that direct feed from the actual store is getting feeded to the warehouse, to the inventory line, whereby they are now seeing what product is actually under demand in which region, so that they are managing their entire supply chain through data analytics, which is allowing them to manage their inventory cost in a better way and ensuring the right product reaches the right region and just in time. So their overall shelf life is also obviously so this is a massive change happening. So end-to-end technological innovation has happened.
I just want to come back to you, Shiva, on one question which has been, we have been reporting on it and everybody has been observing this, is the return of normalcy risk. Even that is a risk. For instance, I'll tell you why I say this, is because when the COVID hit and the pandemic and all that, EdTech has been an example which is overhired, and some other sectors as well have overhired and over-invested in some of these areas. And now, when you're back to normalcy post-COVID, or at least hopefully post-COVID, you are now witnessing mass layoffs and the rejigging of business models. Now, how do you tell your clients to prepare for that? Because there is a tendency to jump into seizing the opportunity, which we talked about, and yet that opportunity seizing, if you do it too much, is also going to present a risk when the tide turns. So, how do you look at that?
Saurabh, I will put this into two distinct buckets. One bucket is that how do you use risk as an opportunity to expand and enhance your business? And we have some grassroots level innovation that has led to a phenomenal growth. I mean, only last week we reported 14 lakh crores of transaction on digital payments with UPI and others. And one smallest of innovation like the voice over on UPI payment on the small traders has made it as a big success. That is what has enabled that. But the other element is that when you look at that as an opportunity, business decisions that you take, how do you balance between other side of the risk of overacting something or underreacting something else? But if you really think about it, it is not that every decision that you make, you don't achieve 100% success in any business. You always have a portfolio of success and failures in it. How do you balance that out is a question, alternate question one needs to have an answer. When we work with our clients, that is where we think you have to rethink the way you are managing your risks. The thinking is not about how do I manage risk on any known or unknown event. It is about doing a right thing, knowing the opportunity. That doing the right thing, if something goes wrong, what are the early warning signals one needs to have? Since you mentioned about EdTech, pre-pandemic, EdTech adoption is minimalistic. There is no measure to say that this is what the historical data would prove the growth will happen. When the reversal happens, suddenly you do think that it is not going, the growth is not going in that way.
And you are
overinvested, or we need to reverse it. That is okay. That is part of your business problem. But that should not be the basis on which you change your risk management policy. But having said that, I do think that when you come back to normalcy in any manner, one thing which I can assure you that if you really look at that last 100 so years, there are 6 or 7 major events that have happened in this world, and each one we thought that the new normalcy came up, new norm set up, and then we had Y2K.
That's right.
That has brought us new normal. I mean, why we are talking about technology today, India being in the forefront, is Y2K is the biggest beginning that has happened. And then we had a dot-com burst, which followed within a couple of years. That's a new normal, because earlier we used to ship people to the countries to deliver. In 2002-3 onwards, we thought that
nothing
it could
nothing as big as the pandemic.
Pandemic. Really, and then you had 2009 and now pandemic. And pandemic has opened up. I think it is a new normal for us, because what initially thought cannot be delivered remotely by the developed world, think that it can be done remotely by the country. So the new normal which has come up.
And I'll come back to you with the same question, Shiva, but I want to ask Vineet. Now, there are two things which we keep talking about as key risks. One is inflation, and second is still the supply chain is still a very, very big question mark across the world, in fact, and also in India. Now, how do you see those two playing out?
So we are actually now advising our customers in terms of what needs to be done as a part of our consulting practice, as a part of our security practice. So far, all the crises that have hit the mankind, and since they were all probably a man created. While we can a little bit controversial whether COVID was also a man-created one, but it was a more of a medical one rather than a sort of I would say a financial one. And one of the things which I believe why inflation, we can all crib about inflation, what happened during the pandemic was all the Fed governments across the globe stepped in different shapes and forms and ensured their core institution infrastructure doesn't collapse. And that's why in the last 2 years, we were able to bounce back, or the whole world has bounced back from a doomsday to what can we do better, is basically because none of the institutions failed in this period of time. So that has been one of the major differentiator compared to what has happened in the past. In the past, you would have seen things wiped off.
That's a very good point. And in fact, as we wind down this discussion, Shiva, this is probably a positive note which we are seeing. But however, having spoken about your role as advising clients on risk, and you spoke about the CEO survey, and that is a telling a pointer to how prepared or unprepared companies are. There is a large number of mid-sized companies, smaller companies, the MSMEs and the others, which are actually the engines of drivers of growth. Many of them still, in order to grapple or even come to terms with the new reality, have not taken the adequate steps on risk management. What are you telling them?
I think there are fundamentally 3 or 4 things that they need to think about it. One is, unlike in the past, and you don't need to really worry about only the big daddies of the technology companies to support. I mean, there are applications developed by young, innovative entrepreneurs to support MSMEs and so on and so forth.
Yes.
The technology platform today, Agile, you have too much of security issues. You have hyperscalers who provide that environment which is secure. And there are new entrepreneurs who are developing applications to provide support to them. So reach out to them. So they have to change from being an individualistic player to the ecosystem player. Second is that what is important is a fear of unknown. I mean, every entrepreneur who was moved into MSME, when he started, there's always a fear of unknown, whether he will succeed or not succeed. But when he has succeeded and reached where he is, he just needs to rewind himself. And another level of unknownness, he needs to enter into it and be ready for it. Second. Third is that, which is most important for them, is that be aware of the risk, but don't worry about the risks. Manage the risks. The worries don't help you to manage, but positive actions helps you to manage, and think about it before starting. Today's ecosystem is far better for startups and MSMEs than what it was 10 years back.
In fact, Vineet, I'll come to you as a tech person. He mentioned startups, and startups are big disruptors in themselves.
Yes.
Or expected from the startup side. But basically, as disruptors, how do you see startups, and how do you think companies big and small should be taking that risk?
No, I think so. It's a question of opportunity for us in this also. See, some startups, the positive part is their innovation quotient is probably much higher than anyone else. While their risk-taking appetite is limited, their innovative quotient is definitely on a higher scale. So we look at opportunities in terms of collaboration. One of the things which I can talk about is, if you look at the earlier part, if I was going for an enterprise application, I used to take an end-to-end suite from the same application. Now I don't need to do it. What most companies are doing is their core is enterprise application, but the apps around it are all through these startups, the innovation which are much more agile, you can easily integrable. Now the whole, some of these core enterprise applications, they themselves are on cloud. They are no longer selling you those licenses on that. So they are also using whatever you use, pay for it. The apps have basically come from all these ecosystems.
Closing comments from you as a risk, as an opportunity, Shiva?
It's absolutely, I think risk is an opportunity. In fact, risk determines human progress and business progress. Every business successes, if you've seen it, somebody has taken a risk. So what it means is that most of us, we believe competition is a risk. Most of us, we believe customers is a risk or ecosystem is a risk, but ecosystem is fundamental to the success of the businesses. So as part of it, we believe every time when somebody takes, if rightly managed, rightly perceived, rightly acted on it, risk become an opportunity for businesses.
So thank you very much, gentlemen. We could have gone on and on about this in the current environment in particular, but thank you very much for this wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.